Hey, Aharon Rabinowitz here for Red Giant TV. In our recent film Tempo, directed by Seth Worley, there's a scene where we show a cow in the laboratory being the test subject for the Tempo device. I wouldn't get too attached to that cow, by the way. Anyway, in this episode of Red Giant TV, we'll show you how we brought that cow from a grassy knoll into the Project Tempo lab where, rest assured, only digital cows are experimented upon. This cow footage comes from a great stock footage website, footageonline.de. I won't lie to you, we got lucky. Never having seen any cow footage, Seth filmed the scene hoping that we would either find a great green screened clip that matched the shot, maybe we'd find someone with access to a cow that could film it for us if we couldn't, or we'd go the route of CGI. Or barring that, we'd drop the visuals altogether, or maybe even drop it from the story if we had to. Luckily, we got something close to the first option of finding the near-perfect clip. Still, it wasn't perfect, and there was work to do. And I have to say, fortunately, none of it was rotoscoping. Not that this would have been a hard shot to roto necessarily, but I prefer not to do that whenever possible. So let's get into it and find out how exactly it was done. So here I am in After Effects with our cow footage. The first thing I'm going to do is get rid of this yellow stuff right here from the tags on the ear, just because my experience showed me that these yellowish, greenish tags would get in the way of our key. So I'm going to select my cow footage. I'm going to choose Effect, Magic Bullet Colorista, Colorista 2. And here, let me just pull back there. Pull this out a little bit. And let's get in there. Let's just do this, where we're going to get into my secondaries here, and I'll jump into the secondary key, and I'm going to select this yellow stuff right here. Let me see if I can get this to fit a little better in this window. I guess that's my limit here. Anyway, we're going to work this out here. We're just going to take this yellow stuff right here, and let's see what that's looking like over here, and let's add more to it. The goal is to just fill this out as much as we can, get as much of this as we possibly can. Just like this. And once you get to something that looks close to what you're trying to go for, you can play with the softness. You can't really see this in your interface right now, but let's just do this. There's a softness underneath here, and I'm just going to bring that up to, like, I don't know, 1%. Let's see. Let's get a little tighter in there. So you can see we're softening it up just a little bit. Just like that. So it's a little bit below the interface here, but there's a softness slider, or just a number you can move along. And I think that we've got something that we can work with here. I'll click on OK. And what I'm going to do is pull out my saturation. And it's still not perfect. I can see that there's still some yellow, so I might go back in there and try to get rid of more of it. So I'll hit the plus button here, and I'll try to get more of it. Like that. And you can see we're including more of this. Unfortunately, we're also taking some stuff from the cow that we probably don't want to, so we're going to find a balance here of what will work. Okay. I think that will, for the most part, do the job. Maybe just a tiny bit more. Let's see if we can do this just a little bit more. Yeah. And again, just like that. I think that'll do the job for what we need to do. And I'll click OK to get out. Okay. So, that said, we've got the yellow pulled out here. And the next thing we want to do is do a smooth screen where we turn all of this grass into a shade of green that's close to each other. So with my footage selected, I'm going to choose Effect, Key Correct, and we'll go with Smooth Screen. Okay, and we'll just have to pick a color. Let me just turn the effect off for just a second so we can grab a color that's more representative. Turn it back on, and you can see that we've got, it's already bringing the color together here. Pretty good. But let's bring the hue tolerance up to like 40%, and the lightness tolerance just a little bit more, maybe 30%. It's looking pretty good. It could probably do a little bit better. Let me just see if I can get a better color on that. Okay, let's try it now. Yeah, I think that's looking probably a little bit better. Okay, so far so good. All right, with these changes, what I'm going to do is pre-comp this cow footage. So just because I'm trying to break this up into different aspects of the project, you don't necessarily have to do it this way, but it's easier for me to focus on the different parts that I have to do by pre-comping. I can always jump in and work with stuff in the pre-comp, or you could just keep it together here. But it gets less confusing to look at, I find, in the interface if I have one piece of the project at a time. So I'm going to choose Layer, PreCompose, and let's just call this Smoothed Out, maybe Cow Smoothed Out. And we'll make sure to move all attributes into the new composition, and we'll click OK. Okay, in just a moment, I'm going to do some stuff here to help bring out the green a little more. But you know what? I'd like to jump back into my pre-comp here for just a moment and jump into my smooth screen and maybe pick a color that's a little better for what we're trying to do. So let's see. I feel like it's picking up a little too much red, so let me just get that down to something like, let's just see, that's looking a little better for me in terms of the color, but we'll get there, something like that. Let's go a little more. And let's see where we go here. It's looking a little bit better. Overall, more uniformity. And I think that's going to do the job a little bit better. Okay, jumping back now into my composition here. I'm going to select my layer and choose Effect, Magic Bullet Colorista, Colorista 2. I'm going to go right into my secondary keyer again, and I am going to select this green stuff all over here, and that should pretty much do it. Can grab a little more, maybe see where we're lacking, and just go with it over here. Okay, and then I'm going to click OK. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to lower the amount of pop, which is going to blur out some of that green, so maybe -20, right? So that blurs it out a little more. And then let's bring up the saturation here a bunch, all the way up. And now we've got something that's starting to look a lot more like a green screen. It's not perfect, but I think that we're going to have a lot more luck once we use Primat Keyer this way. So with that done, I just want to point out one thing, which is that there's, when you start playing with color and stuff, you get noise, which makes it harder to key. So I'm also going to add Magic Bullet Denoiser at this point. And in fact, I'm going to bring it up to here to get rid of the noise before we bring out the color a little more. And I'll bring this up to 200%. And you may not see it here. It's just my experience tells me that it's really helpful to denoise. And there's different places in this project that you could do it, but I found that I got the most success out of it when I did it right at this point. Again, play around and see what works for you. And at this point, because denoiser does require a bit of overhead, I am going to render out this footage so that I have a pre-rendered version of this cow with this color at this point. Okay, so now I've rendered out a ProRes clip of this cow. I probably should have rendered animation compression, which is lossless. I didn't, so let's quickly solve a problem that probably came up from that. Drop our cow prep ProRes on top here, and as you can see, there's a slight color variation with my footage selected, Effect, Color Correction, and we'll go to Levels, and we'll just push the gamma back a little bit, which is something that happens when you render to ProRes, and we'll set that to about 82.82, and if I take a look, pretty much look exactly the same, so we're good there. So our next step is going to be to key out the green. So with my cow footage selected, and make sure that you have this layer turned off right here, cow smooth out, so we don't need that footage anymore. Effect, Primat, and Primat Keyer. And here's where I'm going to choose my background to remove. And obviously there's some work that needs to be done there. In fact, why don't I undo that? And I'm going to turn on Adjust Light On or Off. And what this does is, you can't see this right now, but we basically have like a way of smoothing out the greens even more to get rid of anything that looks like shadowing. So that's happening in the background. And with that on, if I tried to do this again, Let's just do this. We're going to get something that's a little bit better in terms of the key. And here, let me just turn this off. Let me clean our foreground a little bit better. And clean our background a little bit better. And again, back to the foreground. Until we found something that's working for us. And you have to play around a little bit with this to get it just where you want it. But I think we're getting there. It's starting to look really good. Now, depending on your shot, you may have some green spill onto the cow, and you could probably go into the spill, go into the spill suppression area here, which is in our composite controls and spill killer, and you can enable that and set it to green if you needed to. But I think that in this case, it's not even necessary. Just going to leave it on, but we did a pretty good job. And the next thing to do is to just kind of get rid of some of this dirt and stuff that's sitting on the screen. And for that, I am going to use a matte feather sharp. That's one of the tools in key correct. So with my footage selected, I'll choose effect, key correct, and matte feather sharp. And that gets rid of a lot of the crud that's there. Pretty much all of it. I don't think we're going to see any of it. Let me just turn this on. Some of it's still there, but I don't think you're going to see it. I think we're doing pretty well. That said, in the process of keying, we've actually introduced another problem, which is that these feet are all raggedy on the bottom, and I would really, really, really like to fix that. So we're going to reconstruct the bottom part of the feet right now. So let's do that. What I'll do is I'm going to take this composition here, our cow footage, just drop this into a new comp, and I'm going to call this composition, let's call this cow Reconstruct. I'll click on OK. And what I'm going to do is first I'll create a mask around the cow and cut out the bottom parts of the feet that we want to fix. So let me just do this. And jumping ahead so you don't have to sit through the rest of that painful process, we're good. So we're going to call this main. And we're going to duplicate this layer. And our back layer, we're going to call feet. And what we're going to do is take our back layer and move it down ever so slightly, just to give a little more something here. Not much, just a little more of that, just to bring it down and extend it slightly. And what we'll do is, because we've got this extra cow stuff going on here, I'm going to duplicate my mask. Let's just bring this up a little bit. We'll duplicate mask 1 here, and we'll bring the mask path up a little bit, just like this. And what we'll do is we'll set it to difference. And what we get is something that looks like this. Now, it's not perfect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just move it so we have a little more something there. Just move it up until we've got something. And I think that's good enough. You won't notice it. Trust me. I say that. But, honestly, if you didn't notice in the film, not going to notice it here. And it's looking pretty good. We've reconstructed the feet more or less. I think we've done a halfway decent job of that. So our next challenge is going to be positioning the cow in the shot properly. And it's important that we do that in a pre-comp because we're also going to be doing some light wrapping later on. So we want to have a pre-comp where the cow is positioned properly. It's actually not hard to do. So I'm going to take this cow Reconstruct, drop it into a new composition, and I'm going to set the composition name to cow positioned. And I'm going to take my plate, which is the cow plate from the shot, and I'll drop it in here. And we're going to have to pull this out a little bit. And what we'll do is we're going to scale this to -100 on the X. And we're also going to rotate slightly. -6 maybe. Maybe -6.5. Something like that. Pull this in here. Drop it down. Like this. And A little more like that, so the table will block it. And what I want to do is just set this layer to be a guide layer. And we do this, basically this layer is now visible here, but it won't be visible in our final composition rather. So when we drop this composition into another composition, this guide layer will be invisible. So here's our cow, and it's in the shot. I think it's looking good enough. I don't know if we need to scale it down or not, but for now, let's keep it where it's at. I think that's looking pretty good. So now it's time to take this cow and bring it into our new comp. So actually, we have a comp that we've already made, and it's called Cow Final Shot. And just so you can get an idea of what's going on here, there's we have this table, and basically we've duplicated the table. There's a mat that I've used. There's some slight motion to the table, so I created this mat and I move it a little bit. Just when it hits the button, I'm not going to spend the time on just matting this out. It's really simple stuff, but I want to just stay focused on getting the cow in. So this is a mat that we have over the table, the piece of table, that'll allow us to put the cow between the table and the background. So that said, what I'm going to do is take our cow positioned composition and I'm going to drop it right here between the table and the background plate. And there is our cow. And if we feel we need to move the cow over for any reason, maybe it's not exactly right, we'll do that. But I think that we're looking really good so far. So let's look at a couple of things that we need to do to help it fit into the shot a little better. One thing that we're going to do is adjust the color slightly. And I could use other color correction tools, but what I'll do is with my cow position selected, I'll choose Effect, Key Correct, and Color Matcher. And just to tell it to match our plate, and you can see the colors will start to blend a little bit better. And you can bring that strength up if you want. And you can see that cow, the colors in the cow definitely fit the composition a little bit better, but that may be even a little too strong. So back to 50, should be fine. Okay. Another thing we're going to do is, we could, if we feel like there's too much ragged stuff there, we could add in a matte choker or a simple choker, but actually I'm looking at this. I was going to do that. I was going to choose Effect, Matte, Simple Choker. I was going to try this out, but I honestly think it's looking pretty good without it, so I'm going to let it be. But that basically tightens up the matte. It just cuts off just one pixel at that setting. It'll cut off like a pixel as you go. You'll just half a pixel and a pixel. You can just get rid of the edges. But in this case, everything's looking pretty slick here. So that done. The next thing we want to do is add in a reflection, because the cow, we had it reflecting in the floor and everything else is reflecting here. So with my cow position layer selected, I'll choose Effect, Red Giant Warp, which you can't see on your screen, and I'll choose RG Reflection. And this will help us reflect the cow in the floor. And, fortunately, because we have some of the cow blocked by the table, and I knew we would, we can we get away with a little more, really, because we're blocking the parts that wouldn't really look so good. If I remove this table, you'll see what I mean. It's not looking so great with that reflection part there, but no one's going to see that because the table's blocking it. So just a couple of things I need to do to this reflection. We can bring up the softness a bit if you want, because the reflections in the floor are fairly soft. I don't think it has to be that high, maybe 40 if you want. We can start let's lower the fade length a little bit so it starts to blend in a little more, kind of like other things do. It disappears. And, that gets us, it's looking, pretty good. I might also lower the opacity of the effect. So let's see, the reflect opacity just down a tiny bit. Just a tiny bit. And I think we're looking pretty good. So now let's just do one more thing that I like to do whenever compositing, and that's to add a light wrap. That helps the light from the scene spill over the object that you're comping, so it helps you feel like the object is actually in the scene. So with my cow position selected, I'm going to hit Command D to duplicate it, and I'm just going to delete the reflection effect, and instead I'm going to add in Effect, Key Correct, and we'll go with Light Wrap. And so we can see, let's solo this layer. Let's tell it to do comp, so wrap only, right? And we have to tell it the background layer is our cow plate. And so what we're seeing is this is the colors from the shot, like leaking over onto the cow. And we'll spread the width a little bit, just a tiny bit here, and we'll blur the background a bit. And just so you can get an idea what that looks like, let me unsolo this for a moment. Now, it looks really great, for example, up here where the light is spilling over onto the cow. But where it doesn't look good is on the bottom, on the feet, because it's pulling the light from the floor, which really it shouldn't. So my solution for that is to add a linear wipe. So Effect, Transition, Linear Wipe, and we'll set the bring it up to 0, and transition completion, something like this, and then let's feather it. Right? So you get the light wrap without it being on the feet. Right? So it's definitely looking a lot more like it belongs there. I might want to transition a little more. Something like that maybe. Fade that a little more. It's looking pretty good. And, there's also a little bit of a light wrap over here that's not helping because the background isn't so bright that it should be doing that. So what I'll do is I'll add in one more linear wipe. And what I'll do is I'll just change the angle. So let's see. And let's just bring the transition completion up a bit more. You can see the cow's head is a little more in the shot. So again, without it, with it. Definitely looking a little bit better. And lastly, let's just set this blending mode to screen, which really helps pour that light over it. I think that's looking really good. And at this point, we've got our cow in the shot. So when we want to experiment on it with the tempo gun, I want to ruin it for you if you haven't seen the film, it's in the shot and we're good to go. Now at this point in the process, it's a little hard to explain the order of things because I sent stuff over to Seth and he sent stuff back to me. But Seth added the effect of the cow being shot with a tempo device, and then sent it over to me, and I did the color correction. But I don't have the effects for the tempo device being shot here. Hopefully Seth will cover creating that effect, or maybe Harry will cover that in another tutorial. But just to give you an idea of how the color correction was done, I'll just add in a new adjustment layer here. And we'll choose Effect, Magic Bullet, Looks, and then we'll jump into the Looks interface. And then once inside of the Looks interface, we jumped into our presets, and there's a bunch of preset looks in here. But we are using Vintage Film by Nick Campbell, part of the Guru presets, and those are available on redgiant.com. We used the one called Cross Process Basic, and I just adjusted this slightly by reducing the strength of the vignette to 25% and got rid of the film grain because we're going to add something a little later. Anyway, with that, that's the look that we created, and then we just rendered this out. And then what we did was we brought this into Final Cut Pro 10 for using a very special effect that's only available there. And in Final Cut Pro 10, we applied the effect called Red Giant Retrograde, which is only available for Final Cut Pro 10. And we applied this effect, this preset called 16mm documentary. We dropped it onto the footage, and it gave us the look of old film. Anyway, I hope that this helps you in your work. Don't forget, you can download a free trial of the Red Giant products you saw here at redgiant.com. Just head over to the products area here, and you can click on any product you want, and then just click on free trial, and that will allow you to download a free trial of the software. Also, you can find Red Giant Retrograde over at crumplepop.com/retrograde. There are partners who have helped us create Retrograde, and that's where it's available. And also, there's a free trial right there. Also, if you like free stuff, you can also download free products from our site, redgiant.com. Just click on free products and scroll down, and there's a whole bunch of great stuff to look at here. So check that out. Also, if you like free, go to redgiantpeople.com, where you can find tons of free presets for our products. Just check them out. You can mouse over them, get a view of what it's like. If you want to download it, jump in, and then just choose to download the preset. Keep up with us on Twitter, Facebook, and our blog to find out about all sorts of stuff from Red Giant, like product releases, contests, and more. Once again, I'm Aharon Rabinowitz for Red Giant. I'll see you soon.